Married life, going okay so far, Judy and I have been married 50 years this year, so it's a long journey you've begun, It's for life, not just for a couple of weeks. You're okay? And you look gorgeous, don't they look lovely? Okay, God bless, have a great night.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
All right, good on you. That was very spontaneous. You've been welcome, so I don't need to say anything. My name's Lloyd Ashworth, and I'm interim pastor here for 5 more Sundays. And 29th of March is my final Sunday. Regardless of what happens on the 8th, regardless of how you vote, we're through. We're finished. Job done. I'm going. All right, so, it's been great. It's been good, but everything has a season and a time. And our home is Cambridge. We have no idea what we're going to do, although I'll let you into a little secret. We have got a couple of things planned, but we'll talk about that another time. All right, I want to introduce to you one of my very personal and close friends that has been a friend of mine for over 40 years. And every now and then people come into our lives and they change us. And they become significant people who journey life with us. And this morning, John and Rose Muys are here from Sydney, Australia. And John, 40 years ago, was an elder in Hillsborough Baptist Church. About the time when Walter Lang was coming here, and he stayed on and was an elder when I was the senior leader, when I followed Walter Lang. That ages me, doesn't it? And John and Rose became very special friends. We attended the life group in their home. John reached out to me as a young senior pastor and helped encourage me. We had many times when we talked and prayed together and did stuff together that really helped me. And John, during those previous years to when I knew him, was the Auckland director for Youth for Christ. John is a businessman. He's an entrepreneur. That means that he has specific gifts in developing and encouragement and seeing the way things might be and leading towards that. Okay, that's what a kind of strategic thinker does. And when John came into my life, he started asking me questions. Where are you going? What are you doing? What's your gifting? What's God really truly laid on your heart to do? And John then moved into developing Christian Ministries International, which is in the area of music and worship. He was the guy who brought a number of key musicians to New Zealand, singers and leaders from Nashville, USA, Amy Grant, second chapter of Acts. Do you remember those years? All right, and what was the guy that played the guitar in this Eve of Destruction? Barry Maguire, right. So John was a businessman who actually was behind a number of these developments in Christian music and artists, and then, as we all do, he had a season of life where God called him to England, and he became the CEO of Christian of CWR, World Revival, CWR, Crusade for World Revival. And that was a challenge, but that required some unique leadership. And he did that, and then he came back and he moved to Australia and developed more ministries, and he now becomes a mentor to a number of pastors and leaders. And John and Rose came to Cambridge, and they've been with us for a couple of days. And I said, John, I want to interview you. And then last night I said to him, I don't think I'm going to preach today. I think I'm going to get you to speak. And He's going to share with us, and you guys are going to be so challenged and blessed today. He's going to share with us about the seasons of his life and how he stepped out in faith and how God has used him to kind of do some really amazing things in relationships, in churches, in international ministries, in musicians, in a particular family called the Pink family who traveled all around the world sharing the gospel. He might even tell a bit of that story. So I would like you to welcome, I hope I haven't spoken him up too much, but he's a very special man in our lives, Judy and my life, John and Rose, and they will challenge and walk with us right through life. I have no doubt about the fact that we will be together in some way right through our lives, because that's the kind of guy he is. Would you welcome today to speak to us John Muys? Thank you. Come on up, John. All right. Push that button. Let's see if we can get it going. Okay, you're on.
All right. Well, thank you, Lloyd. It's wonderful to be here and to be able to share something about the journey that you've been on. I've been on, and Rose and I have been on. We've been on the same journey now for just over 6 decades. And we met up in 1961. I fell in love with this girl almost straight away, working in a bank. And then we got married in 65. And it's been quite a journey since then. And one of the things that I've seen God do is that He takes us through seasons of life. And sometimes the most unexpected things are the very things that change dramatically your situation. I was working in an insurance company, the Guardian Royal Exchange, in Gisborne, as a matter of fact. And and I was offered by the general manager of the organization of the insurance company a position in Auckland that was going to be a step to go through to London, and they were grooming me for some management role in the insurance company. And that night we were in Napier, of all places, celebrating this wonderful event. And out of the blue, I got a phone call, or in fact, I got a visit from the president of Youth for Christ at the time, who asked me, "Don't go ahead with this appointment. I want you to come to Auckland and set up Auckland Youth for Christ." And Rose and I had been praying about doing some kind of Christian work for some time, and that gelled with us, and we felt, wow, this is really a call of God. So after celebrating that evening with the general manager of the Guardian Royal Exchange and accepting this appointment to go to Auckland and then maybe on to London for further training and development, I said to Wilbur Wright at the time, and some of you may know that name of past gone years, I said, okay, we're ready to go. And Rose and I accepted to go to Auckland. So the next morning I had rather an awkward meeting with the general manager for the Guardian Royal Exchange to say, I'm not going ahead with the appointment that we celebrated last night. We're off to Auckland, but I'm going to be the head of develop and create a new youth organization called Youth for Christ. So he offered me quite a bit of extra money to try and persuade me otherwise. But I said, no matter what let me tell you what they're offering to pay me. So I shared with him the wage that they were going to give me in Youth for Christ, which was actually less than my expense account with the Guardian Royal Exchange. And he said, well, I can't compete with that. You're crazy. And so we parted ways, and I went to Auckland. And so you can see that it was something that God just sort of dropped into our lives to do in the most unexpected ways. We were more than convinced that we were going to go in the insurance company way, and that was our future. But the Lord had other ideas. And as I reflect back on our journey over the last 6 decades or so, God did the unexpected at an unexpected moment, whether we thought of it or not, we were prepared for it or not. And probably as I reflect back over our journey, the moment that Lloyd mentioned about the Pink family, they were very talented musicians. In fact, the children of the Pink family had entered a program, TV event like Idol, and they won it. And they won this big event on TV1, and they were given a trip to Fiji, and they sang in resorts over there, and they won some money, and they became the backbone the session musicians, if you like, of our Town Hall Youth for Christ rally. And they sang, and the parents, Laurie and Huena. Huena was a Maori teacher in high school in Auckland Girls Grammar. She taught Maori and she taught English, highly respected. And Laurie was a headmaster of a school. And together they used to sing on HCJB. Have you heard of HCJB? Now I'm aging. There was Heralding Christ Jesus Blessings. That was what it was called. It was a radio station in Ecuador that was promoting Christ around the world. And on our shortwave radio stations, we had a set where you could tune it in and you could listen to HCJB. Well, anyway, at Hillsborough Baptist, we invited this family to come and sing. And Laurie preached, and the whole family sang, and God spoke to me in an amazing way. I got this terrible desire to see this family released in full-time ministry. And as the meeting went on, this grew and grew and grew, and I couldn't wait for the meeting to end. And when it did, I rushed out. At that particular time in our lives, Rose and I were sleeping in the same bed, but never together. She went to work at 10 o'clock at night and worked till 6 in the morning, or 11 o'clock till 7 o'clock, about that time. And I'd be in the bed and she'd be working, and she'd arrive home and I'd be getting up, and we'd get our 3 children, and they were 10, 8, and 6 at the time, get them ready for school, and I'd take them to school. We had breakfast and go to school, and Rose would go to bed. 4 o'clock in the afternoon, I'd pick up the kids from school, come home. Rose would get out of bed, we'd have dinner, and then I would go off and run a campus life club till about 9 o'clock that night, get home. And Rose would be ready to go to work, she'd go to work, and I'd go to bed. And that was sort of our routine for quite some time. And we loved what we were doing, but it wasn't easy. It wasn't easy, as you could well imagine. And the program of Youth for Christ was very successful, and we were thrilled. We had a dozen or so full-time staff, and we had some 100+ volunteers. They're running campus life and youth guidance clubs and throughout Auckland, and rally program, and they had a coffee bar ministry as well. So that was all that was happening in our lives. So this happened right in the middle of this. And I got to Laurie that night after church, and I said, Laurie, God has called me to tell you that you need and the family to go into full-time ministry. And Laurie was dumbfounded. He said, you know what happened? He said, this morning in our devotions, the Lord spoke to me, and I challenged the family. I said, if we ever get a call to go into full-time across New Zealand, then we must be ready to go. Are we ready to go? And the family said, yes. I said, not New Zealand, Laurie, the world. The world, Laurie. And I got so excited, I said, we'll start in Brisbane, and we'll go to Sydney, and we'll go to Melbourne, and we'll go to Adelaide, and we'll go to Perth, and then Mauritius, and then South Africa, and then Africa. And from there, we'll go to the Middle East, and from there, we'll go to Europe, and from there, we'll go to India, and back to Hong Kong. I said, a whole year of ministry. And Laurie said, how is that going to happen? I said, you prepare the family, I'll take care of the finances, I'll take care of the organization, we'll do a recording, we'll sell records, we'll set up a sound system, we'll do the whole thing. And I went home and I was so excited, and I shared my vision with Rose. And it was a bit painful. She said, are you crazy? But I felt such a call to see this happen. So I couldn't wait for the next board meeting, which was later that week at Youth for Christ, and I shared it at Auckland YFC. And Laurie actually was on the board of YFC, and we talked about it. And the chairman of the board looked at me and said, John, we've got a big program here in Auckland. Read my lips. We're Auckland Youth for Christ. Not the world, John, not the world. Auckland Youth for Christ. In fact, we've got so much going on, we're a bit concerned that you're sort of being distracted away with these kind of things, and you've got to make up your mind. Are you going to stay with us as the Auckland director, or are you going to do these other things? And I said, well, I've got to do this. So I tendered my resignation right there and then. But I thought, well, I've got a national board meeting with the Youth for Christ executive in Wellington later that week. And so I went there and I shared my vision with them. And they said, we're New Zealand Youth for Christ, John. We're not the world. So, in fact, one of the leaders of that executive said, John, there's a technicality that you've overlooked. And I said, what's that? He said, well, you are here as the Auckland director on this board, but you resigned. So you're not even qualified to be on the national executive anymore. So I went home with that news and told Rose that not only was I out of Auckland Youth for Christ, we were out of Youth for Christ in total. And the car we were driving was a YFC car. And the house we were living in had a 110% mortgage at 18% interest in those days. Remember those days, folks? 18% interest on your mortgage. And Rose was working to help put food on the table with the little bit that I was getting from YFC, and I'd lost that wage. And I got a phone call from one of the board members of Auckland YFC that said, now that you've resigned, remember the fact that I've given you an unsecured second mortgage on your house that you'll now need to repay within the next 6 months. So that was all very challenging. But I'd committed, and this was September 1979, and I'd committed with Laurie and Wenner and the family to see them start their ministry of itinerant ministry around the world in first week of February 1980. So I was the elder at Hillsborough Baptist, and Hillsborough Baptist was an amazing church. Its missionary budget was bigger than its local budget. And they supported missionaries all around the world. It was just amazing. And so I met with the missionary committee. I said, they've got a world vision. I'll share it with them. So I shared it with them, and they said, we'll need a couple of days to pray about this. So I said, fair enough. So they did. And they came back to me, and I was all excited. And the leader of that, and remember, I'm an elder in the church, but the leader of the missionary committee looked at me and said, we've prayed about it, and God has given us the answer. We feel unanimously that we're not to support you. In fact, you shouldn't go anywhere for support, but you should underwrite it yourself. And I was flabbergasted. Here was I. And I went home to Rose and I said, this is what the missionary committee said. And yet I felt compelled that it was God telling me to do this thing. And I had no resources. And it was a time in our lives when I look back over the last 60 plus years, that it was probably the time that we were most vulnerable. We had 3 kids, 10, 8, and 6. We had a huge mortgage. We had no income, no job at that particular point in time. And would you believe it, the following morning, the phone rang. And it was the general manager of the Guardian Royal Exchange on the phone. He'd been ringing me for every year he'd ring me. He stopped ringing me for about 4 years, but for the first 3 years of the 7 years that I was with YFC, he'd call me and he'd say, have you come back to your senses yet? Are you ready to come back to us? Are you ready to walk away from this religious business that you're onto and get back into the real world. Because we're prepared to take you back and upgrade your super, and we'll pretend that this thing with, what's the name of the organization again? Never ever happened. And you're back in line, you see. And I said, no, I'm staying. And finally, he'd given up on me. But he rang me and said, John, I'm ringing you for the very last time. We've decided to restructure the company. I said, what? Yes, we've let go of a whole sales team. And there was about 20 reps across New Zealand that were inspectors selling the insurance business. And we've divided up New Zealand into 8 lots. And we're approaching our top guys to take over these master agencies for the Guardian Royal Exchange. And you're the first guy I'm ringing. Are you interested in Auckland? And I said, yes. Yes. He said, yes. Well, he said, there's already a set commission related to the business that you'll be allocated of around $40,000, $50,000 a year. I was on $6,000 a year with Youth for Christ. I said, wow, yes. So the next night, I got Stan Thorburn, who I think some of you may have heard of. He was the Chief Justice here in New Zealand. He just started his new law practice just 45 years ago. And my accountant, Paul Weber, and my graphic designer, and we met at our place and we formed South Pacific Insurance Bureau, New Zealand Limited, Christian Ministries International, Christian Marketing. We needed a marketing company to promote the records and things like that we were going to produce with the Pink family. And so that happened overnight. I met with Jeff Renner, who was the World Vision director, and I had a bit of a relationship with him, and I'd shared with him what we were going to do with the Pink family. And Jeff said, while they're traveling around the world, would it be possible that the Pink family could visit various World Vision projects and come back and share it in, say, 20 meetings across New Zealand in November, December, around that time, and promote the work of World Vision, particularly as it relates to child sponsorship. And I said, great. He said, and what we're prepared to do will advance you the fee of about $200 for each event, and came to about $8,000. And you can have that money now, so long as you set up some guarantors with some business people in Auckland, that if for any reason what you're planning to do doesn't eventuate, that we would secure our position. So we did that. And we got the businessmen to underwrite it. We used the money to produce the Pink family record, Just Ordinary People. I don't know, anybody remember that? No, I can understand that. Oh, you do, over here. We've got one that remembers Just Ordinary People with the Pink family. And we produced the album. We bought sound equipment and lighting equipment and a spotlight that could do a concert in front of 1,000 people. And we were in business. That all happened in a matter of 10 days. From around the 7th of September to about the 14th of September, 15th of September, we had it secured. The Pink family, Raymond Pink, who some of you may know, currently lives in Christchurch, was a first-year med student. Today, he is probably New Zealand's best medical advisor on Maori health. I don't know whether you've ever come across him. And as a physician. But when he left med school in Dunedin, they told him, once you leave, you'll never get back in again. You'll never get your position back. Laurie was told he would never get his position back as headmaster at the end of the tour. When it was said, Auckland Girls Grammar said to me, I'm sorry you're going, but you're never going to get your position back. So everybody was told that, and that was their step of faith. They would never get their position back. Anyway, the tour happened, and miracles happened on that tour. I haven't got time to talk about it because I see the clock says 6 minutes past 11, so I don't have too much time left right now. But the point I want to make, that it had nothing to do with my ability at all or my resources. But God somehow set up the opportunity to allow me to form a company that's still operating today. My younger brother, who's 15 years younger than I am, I trained him as an insurance cadet, and I think that he probably handles the insurance on this building. Wouldn't be at all surprised because he does churches throughout the whole of New Zealand. And Peter joined me as a cadet and has been taking the company. I worked with him for about 5 years, and God led me into other areas and did other things, and he's continued on for 40 years running this company and running this insurance brokerage business. And it was that formed the financial backing for the Pink Family Tour. And of course, we got a lot of sponsorship as well. We floated the airfares on American Express, which came to, I think, $55,000, which was quite a bit of money at that particular time. Rose and I wrote a letter. I wrote a letter as the world president of Christian Ministries International. Of course, it was only Rose and I in the organization. And we sent a letter off to Air New Zealand saying that we were doing this worldwide multicultural Christian goodwill tour with this multicultural family. Shona had married a Samoan, Pali Sauni, and so they did all kinds of multicultural things. But God just did miracles all the way through that year, and God undertook. The reason I want to tell you that story, I'll tell you that story because it's not about me. It really isn't about me. I had nothing to give. God opened doors and called me to do something. And all I did was just step out and do it, but I knew it was God. And it's very, very important that you step out when God calls you to do something. And I just want to encourage you, no matter your circumstances. And there were other times too that God just spoke in unique ways to us to do various things and gave us assurances. At times that we didn't even believe it was God speaking. It was only when we looked back that we could see the finger of God upon our lives. And the Lord loves you. He's got a purpose for you. It matters not where you are, what you're currently doing. It's part of the season that you're in. So even if you're in a difficult spot right now, recognize that it is a season. There are times in our lives that Rose and I had plenty of money. There are times in our lives when we didn't need for anything and we were able to give to others. There were times in our lives like this when we were grateful when people delivered some food to us because we needed it right there and then and we couldn't afford to feed our kids. So no matter the circumstances you find yourself in, God is in control. There are 3 principles, and I just want to finish with that, and I'm going a little bit over time. But basically, I see them as keys to the kingdom. Number 1 is relationships. The greatest commandment, when Jesus was asked, what is the greatest commandment? He said, love the Lord your God with all your heart, mind, body, and soul. Just love him. And the second is, love your neighbor as yourself. And that's the first one. And the point I just want to make about that is that what I discovered Your bank account is important. Money, you need money. But the most important things are your trust accounts. And in every relationship you and I have, we have a trust account. Some of you have thousands of trust accounts. Some of you have hundreds of trust accounts. Some of you may have 50 trust accounts. But you have a trust account with various people, and we build those trust accounts. And one thing that I've found in business, for example, that is not so much the money in the bank that's important or other assets, but it's the trust accounts I have with the people that I do business with. Am I building my trust accounts with them? And the way you build your trust account is through the second principle, which is the serving principle. You know that, and I appreciate I've got a medical doctor sitting in front of me, but the point I guess I want to make, there isn't a cell within our bodies, a healthy cell. All our healthy cells, all our healthy organs are there for a purpose outside of itself. They don't exist for their own sake. They exist to serve. And when you look at the micro world or the cosmo world or the physical world, no matter what it is that God ever created, everything was created to serve a purpose outside of itself. When we have a cell within our body that is there for its own sake and is there seeking to be served, you know what that's called? It's called cancer. It's a malignancy. And ultimately it destroys the very body or the organs that it possesses. And so for us to operate as a healthy person and to be relevant to our community, to be relevant in our business, to be relevant in our marriage, to be relevant as a father, as a husband, whatever capacity you serve, the way you serve is what makes you relevant. The moment you begin to think, what's in it for me? And I've helped throughout the years a number of organizations as well as businesses out of deep financial difficulties and restructure around different parts of the world as it happens. And at the heart of it is are they truly a servant? Are they there to really serve? Is that the dynamic? And the third factor is the factor of sowing and reaping. Every action has a consequence. And you sow into your life. The reality is, you know, I was good at my job as an insurance inspector. And I was one of the best as it happened. And I'm not trying to be Donald Trump here. I'm just telling you, I was great. No. I was good at what I did. And because I was good at what I did, I got the phone calls that God used to send the Pink family around the world. You hear me? How would I have ever known when I was operating as an inspector in Gisborne, working, that my serving, the way I served the Guardian Royal Exchange, would actually make a difference 10 years later? And so basically, what I encourage you to do is to build trust accounts in relationships. Serve like you, and prepare yourself for service. Be the very, 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 very best you can be. Because by investing in your service, into your relationships, you will build the kingdom of God. And remember, it's a horizontal, vertical relationship. Vertical, horizontal. I got to get this right. Vertical, horizontal, John. All right. And so it's my relationship with the Lord that feeds my relationship with people around me. That's when they see Christ in me, the hope of glory. And all I want to encourage you to be is to be Christ in your world. Build trust accounts with people around you. So if there's one person they can trust, it's you. Build up your trust accounts as husbands, as wives, as parents, with your children. I was going to say a lot more, but it's 16 minutes past 11, and I should have finished about 15
right.
minutes ago.
Well, no, you did okay. Actually, John, you did very well. I heard some amazing stories yesterday, and you know, when this family went to South Africa, they weren't able to take money out of South Africa, and the rand was virtually, not internationally able to be exchanged in those days. And one of the family had the idea that what they would do to try and bring some finance out was to actually buy some diamonds. And they bought uncut diamonds, posted them, didn't they, into New Zealand?
Yeah.
And
Totally illegal.
And then registered them here. I mean, there's some crazy things happened on this journey.
Yeah.
And then you had another dream one night, which was when they were about to leave Africa and go to the Middle East.
That's right.
You felt like the Lord said, don't take the equipment, just take guitars.
Yeah, it was a funny night. I was having this dream, and I was shouting in my dream, and Rose wakes me up and says, "You're shouting in your dream, what's going on?" What was I saying? She says, "Don't take the equipment to the Middle East." And I said, "That's God. This is 2:00 in the morning." And I in those days, because of the Pink family being overseas, next to my bed was my briefcase. This was before we had mobile phones and things, and so I looked up where the Pink family were, and they were in Nairobi, and they were staying at the YMCA, and there was a phone number, so I rang that number, and after about 10 seconds, the manager of the group, Alistair Stevenson, picks up the phone and says, "Hello?" And I said, "Alistair, so good I got you on the phone. Don't take the equipment to the Middle East. I want you to immediately go downtown in Nairobi and have it shipped direct to India, and you won't need just keep on to your guitars and your acoustic instruments, and go to the Middle East on the kibbutzes with those, because there won't be any, I don't think we'll have any electricity to operate this, and I'll organize the new instruments for you in Europe and in the UK, and then you can pick up your instruments again in India." What I didn't realize was there's only one phone box or one phone in the whole of the YMCA in Nairobi, and it's a public phone, and it's in the hallway. And Alistair and Raymond and some of the team happened to be walking past this phone when I rang it, and Alistair, who's about the only guy I know around that would ever pick up a public ringing phone and say hello, just picked up this phone and said, "Hello." I would not have been able to contact them. It was that moment at 2:00 in the morning, New Zealand time, that he happened in Nairobi to walk past the phone. And that was just one of the many miracles that happened as God meant.
This whole journey of faith and of stepping into this unknown has been remarkable in your life over several seasons and, literally not centuries, but decades.
Thanks very much.
Yeah.
Thank you.
But it's actually a principle, isn't it, that when we get this right, we feel like we can't do stuff, but God asks us to step out.
Yeah.
And keep saying yes. It's the key, isn't it?
Yeah.
It's and now you're an old man.
I am. Very old.
And I was talking to you this morning about the seasonal changes of life.
Yeah.
And how for A-type driven people, it's very hard to make the adjustment. And how you have made the adjustment now to become a mentor and an encourager of younger men and younger pastors. And God has moved you from season to season to season. But the same principles of obedience and trust still operate. It's really cool, isn't it?
Yeah. I mean, just remember, God, you never know with God what's just around the corner. And the most insignificant thing that happens that you're asked to do could open up a whole field of ministry that you never ever expected. You're going in one direction and you feel it's right and God's leading you, but then all of a sudden he drops something into you and takes you into another course of action.
That's exactly right.
And I could talk about that next week. No, sorry.
No, but that's the key, isn't it? It's a stepping off point.
Yeah.
And, often we actually, you're stealing my message from next week when I'm going to start a series of 4 weeks on Gideon. Which is that step off and step into what God calls you to do.
Right.
And in the process of doing that, he will direct you to the next thing.
Yeah.
And that's the key, isn't it? Is actually not to sit down and say, God, show me what you want, and I'm not moving till you tell me. Actually, that's actually not it. Step into what God's called you to do, even with what little you have, and he'll make the difference.
Absolutely right.
Cool, eh?
All right.
Would you
Thank you.
encourage this man? What a wonderful word, and thank you, John. Our music team, would you come on up?